better. Y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles. Got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the TWSN.
Thank you guys for joining us for another sit down with Malik Wright Bengals recap show. I'm your host Malik Wright. I'll be joined by my new co-host that'll be joining me for every Bengals game recap show remaining for the rest of the season, Zim Whodey. But before we do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. Yeah, the Bengals dropped 37-17 to the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think anybody saw it playing out this way, especially considering how the Bengals started the game. There's going to be so much for us to get into. We'll try to answer your questions as much as possible as well. Dave, let's bring Zim in here if we can. Zim, what's going on, bro?
What's going on? I need to back up some.
I was about to say, you close, man. You
I'm about to say, I think people want to see us together in there, but I don't think they want us locked up with them. Back up some.
Man, so Bengals lose to Philadelphia, man. In a game in which they were controlling majority. It looked like the offense had it together. They lost something, obviously, when Orlando Brown went out the game. I have my thoughts on it, but I really want to give you an opportunity to give your overall sentiment on the game and how everything kind of just played out.
Did we even punt in this game?
No, not once.
And scored 17 points.
Yep.
I got a lot of different thoughts. I don't know what direction we want to go with.
Take it away, brother.
Let me start off with saying this. The people that are saying fire Zach Taylor off the break, I don't think you're off. Like I just don't. I don't think he can win. I'm gonna just get straight to it. I don't think he's capable of taking his team to a Super Bowl and actually winning it. Right. So I'll just say that. But the people that are thinking like he's about to get fired right now, not happening. Not happening. Like, stop saying that. It's not happening. 3-5, still in playoff contention. Got supposed to be a layup game next week against the Raiders. Then you got a chance to go play the Ravens and make it 5-5. In no world is this so get off of that and get to back to the game, or get back to you're not going to get that. You can scream it from the mountaintop. The Bengals would have had to have a 0-7 start or something for this front office to even think about that. The next one is Lou. Lou is the game plan and everything that was there was fine. That was fine. I think people need to understand that the personnel, and before we were talking about personnel utilization and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I watched full 4 quarters of no pressure. Trey Hendrickson getting locked up by a backup in Fred Johnson that is a castaway from the Bengals. No pressure. I don't remember seeing shoulder rankings the entire game. I don't remember anybody up front. Miles Murphy, I remember him making mistakes in the run game early in the game. There was nothing, no semblance of pressure in the entire game.
Right.
When Jalen Hurts had a little bit of pressure on the first 2 drives, he threw errant passes, long wind up. I'm like, this guy sucks. They made him look like elite. DJ Turner and Cantella Britt as your cornerbacks just isn't good enough, honestly, to beat the best teams in the NFL. I just watched the Browns handle the Ravens throughout most of the game without Denzel Ward. Their backup cornerbacks, I will argue, might be better than our starting cornerbacks right now. They play sticky coverage. Joe Burrow said that was one of the best defenses that they played. I watched them do everything that we probably should have, and we probably would have beat the Ravens by 10, 20 points 3 weeks ago if we had that personnel. People need to understand that the personnel on this team, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, is not good enough. And on the offensive side of the ball, I think it could be. You saw that with Burton, but them waiting this late to even play Burton is nuts. That is insane. I watched this dude probably had a chance to go get 2-3 tuds in his first game, You think that guy, I've been saying this since week 1, and people were like, oh, you just need to be patient. Bro, this is a 3rd round pick. What are we talking about? You're not like that. So the same person that's saying fire Zach or get rid of the whole team is the same person that's going to say, well, I mean, you got to trust the staff when it comes to Burton. And while this guy isn't playing, he played. He has another big play. You don't think that could have helped you in any of these games? The Bengals are 0-4 at home. You sound stupid at this point. Like, to say that you're holding anything back, anybody that's saying that you need to hold anything back, you're treating this game and you're treating it just like all of our opposition tells us all the time. You're acting as though the Bengals have won a Super Bowl. You don't have any margin for error to hold anything back. Who do you think you are? You need to play every single person that can help the Bengals win from start to finish, every single aspect. There's no person that you have the opportunity to hold back. Every little detail, every McPherson missed field goal, anything that you could think of, the Bengals are not good enough personnel-wise with the players that they have to go win big games. And they show that consistently throughout throughout the season. And I just cannot believe that we're at this spot 3-5. But these things like the Zach Taylor playbook is okay. I'm not mad at the playbook. It's the feel for the game. It's the decisions. It's different things like that. Those are the things that are the problem. The playbook isn't like that big of an issue to me. It's just I'm a little lost because, like I said, all this season, there is no every single time that the Bengals do something really well, they come out of the half, they stop the run a couple people. This seems so long ago. They stopped Saquon early in the 3rd, but then they give it up on the back end. DJ Turner in coverage on Devontae. Like, bro, you don't have what it takes. You can blame whatever coach that you want, whatever. They don't have what it takes to go make the plays in those spots. And if there are players that can make the plays, where are they? I don't see them. And Yoshi having a drop today, Burton finally, I think you're starting to see you're not as good as you think you are, but you're trying to use coaches as scapegoats in different points. There is validity to saying Zach isn't the guy. I understand that. But I think you need to understand you are who you are at this point. The Bengals at 3-5, you kind of are 3-5. You're a 3-5 team. You beat a bunch of bum teams or a couple of bum teams, and then you lost to the good ones. It's not really rocket science to me.
I agree. And I want to touch on a couple of things that you had talked about, man. I agree with you. The personnel usage is something that's reared its ugly head several times this season, whether it be the lack of usage for guys that you brought in here, like a Mike Gesicki. There's been 2 games in a row. Obviously, his snaps went up. The usage of Mike Gesicki went up with T. Higgins being out of the game. But could you imagine what the utilization of that guy looks like with T. Higgins in the game, right? With Jamar Chase in the game, the utilization of Jermaine Burton. Now, what I was told, the reasoning for, Jermaine Burton not playing was because of some behavioral issues and showing up late to meetings, not being on time of things. And I agree with what you said. There is no room for error, right? Because when you are facing a situation where you're now winless at home, you're fighting to stay in the hunt for playoff contention. The division is still on the table-ish. You have no room to basically hold back. You have no room to not see what you potentially have, because ideally when this offseason hits, and let's say you do miss the playoffs, you're going to be in a situation in which if you're going to need a roster turnover, if you're going to need to make some changes, well, maybe you should play a Cedric Johnson. Maybe you should play a Jermaine Burton a little bit more than what you are playing him. One thing that we always talk about on this show, man, is situational coaching and the impact that it has in the overall game, right? Situational coaching is so important. Every coach in the NFL can sort of coach for the most part. But what separates good coaches from great coaches, from average coaches, is your ability to coach effectively in those situational spots, because those are the high pressured moments. And when I look at it, you and me when we first jumped on the live, you said, did we even punt today? Right? You have a weapon in Ryan Rico, who has been playing like the best punter in the NFL. And then you have a spot, right, in which, okay, obviously I felt like Zach put more pressure on himself in that spot and more pressure on the Bengals in that spot to go for it. And he was overly showing a little bit too much respect to the Eagles. I guess to the Eagles offense, and he didn't want to give them the ball back. But in that spot, that's 100%, a chance where you roll Ryan Rico out there, you pump the ball, you let them pin Jalen Hurts back in a situation. You trust your defense. That's what I would have done in that situation, right?
Really?
Well, hear me out. If that was going to be the call that he made, right, throwing behind the chains, 100% you punt in that situation. 100% you punt in that. If that was going to be the call.
I'm not mad. I'm serious. I wasn't mad at that call. I definitely wasn't mad at the decision because I feel like the Eagles had so much momentum, and I thought that the Bengals were in a shootout at that point, and it had to match them. And I was like, maybe in the next round, you might not even have the chance to get a 4th and 1. I do recognize it's at the 37, but I'm at least hoping my defense can stop them to a field goal, and maybe I'm down 10 points instead of 14. Is that the right time frame?
Yeah, no, you're right.
So to me, I didn't hate the call. I'm thinking the first person never tackles Jamar Chase. I thought that the timing and the guy played it really well. I thought the short yardage was horrible the whole entire game. So I'm not thinking I could run on 4th and 1. But to your point, I mean, punting it, I don't know. They weren't stopping them though. Like I don't know.
The way I look at it is you put your defense in a situation in which they have almost favorable field position, right? Where they back that Eagles offense up versus the optics, right? Of if you did get stopped like you did, and you're basically giving an offense that's been rolling all day the utmost confidence. You stop a team you make a team turn over the ball on downs. They're coming in with all the momentum. They're coming in with all the energy, all the excitement. And at that point, it was almost like a give me to them, in my opinion. If again, was that the call that Zach Taylor made? We don't know. What was it, a Burrow audible? We don't know. But I just think that for that to be the play call, at that point, it was almost like we were waving the white flag and kind of giving them the ball to score because you're putting them in a favorable position. And it's funny. You and me talked offline, and we sort of previewed the game when we were having our conversation, and we talked about the Bengals' ability to stop a Saquon Barkley and how the things that made us, I guess, uncomfortable were they going to be able to do it consistently for all 4 quarters. This is almost identical to what happened when they played Derrick Henry. They bottled Derrick Henry up, and then it took one big run, and then everything starts to fall apart. They were doing a fantastic job on a Saquon Barkley early in the game, and I agree with you. Listen, they don't have the personnel right now. Or I would say the personnel they have right now is not good enough, and we're seeing it right here. We're seeing it. And I would have liked to see a little bit more pressure on a Jalen Hurts to make that guy uncomfortable because he showed in those 2 drives, damn, if you put pressure on me, I'm not comfortable. But if you sit back and you play zone like you did all game, well, I'm going to chew you up. But I also think that speaks to an issue, right? And this is what could hurt Lou in the future and potentially even cost him his job. You may not have the most comfort in DJ Turner and Cam Taylor-Britt, but there's gotta be an alternative, whether that means you're sending extra blitzers, because Trey Hendrickson can't be the only effective edge rusher. You can't have a Sam Hubbard on the other edge getting locked up by a tight end, a backup tight end in a block situation. That's abysmal. That's not something that you ever want to see from your starting edge rusher who you're playing, $8-7 million a year. That's just unacceptable under no matter the circumstance. It was bad. It was bad. Like, you play Jordan Battle on a spot. You see Jordan Battle covering what's his name? Devontae Smith for a deep shot on a touchdown. Like, it's like, what's going on? What I saw a little bit, it felt like DJ Turner didn't have the communication down at points with Geno Stone. I think it was one play in general where Jalen Hurts was about to snap the ball. He's going left. He's going right. He's going left. He's going right. And we got to go back and watch the film to, digest this whole thing. But I saw a completely different team from a confidence level from the first half to the second half. I even think things started to unravel at the end of the second quarter, and I think it just kind of started to bleed into it. But I
think you're seeing that though, because the Bengals, and this is the same thing when Joe Burrow went out last year. The Bengals trace the money, trace the conversations, trace the media, trace how we cover. The team thrives off of Joe Burrow in this offense scoring points. If they don't score points and they only had 10 points, like 10 to 10, like honestly, I don't know if y'all seen that replay. It's really an elbow. It's not even a football. But they give him the touchdown. Whatever. Right. Cool. Whatever. At that point, I'm saying the defense has done their job. This is supposed to be a top 5 offense. And at that point, I'm telling you, there are leaders that we've lost, including like a Joe Mixon and stuff like that. And there are all these vocal guys that I think would give our team like a little bit of more oomph to it. And then now the more vocal guys like a Chris Jenkins as a rookie, Sheldon Rankins who hasn't done anything. These are your now leaders. So now how am I conveying to a team or a locker room that I'm really him if the leaders aren't making these type of plays? Even when we would get blown out, like even when we got blown out by the Browns in the rain, go watch that. Joe Mixon was like still doing what he had to do, still talking to people on the sideline. He didn't play bad in the game. I thought he was like the best player. But those are examples of somebody leading by example. They don't really have anybody that can lead by example. Jamar Chase isn't a talkative guy like that. And Joe Burrow isn't going to go out there and berate people and stuff like that. He's going to have your back. He's going to challenge you through different ways. And I think that this team goes as the offense goes. This isn't to let the defense off the hook. But if it's 10-10 at halftime, I'm thinking that the Bengals offense I literally tweeted, I said they have to score at least 17 points minimum coming out the second half. And a lot of times it'll be a close game. We used to do this a lot with Dalton. It'll be a game we lose like 17-10, and everybody be like, I can't believe the defense gave up a play at the end of the game. And I'd be like, I can't believe that the offense didn't do diddly squat the whole damn game. Right. And so the second half of the game, come on, bro. Like a touchdown, that's it? Right. That's it? Yeah. You finish the game on a turnover on downs, interception, fumble. Like to me, the Bengals, the money, everything is funneled towards the offense to a minimum score 24 points minimum every single week. And if you don't do that, I'm 1,000% looking at the defense. And there was some there's some stuff that I ain't like, but the play that you outlined too, the Jordan battle and coverage, go watch that play. There's no pressure. If somebody is in here saying, Lou's got a maybe you call a blitz, whatever. I don't think he has the personnel to cover on the back end if you send a blitz. And when you throw the pass there, I thought Jordan Battle tried to make a play on it, but bro, Jalen Hurts had 7 seconds to throw it. Yep. Like, are people watching that play? It's not like Jalen Hurts was like hurried into it. He had 7 seconds. There's nobody up front. Y'all think Lou about to line up at D tackle and 3 tech now?
So here's the thing, when this is going to be a healthy conversation for when we get into the offseason talk. I understand offense is sexy and we see offensive names pop up. And Danny, I'm going to get you in here in a second. But we see a lot of offensive names pop up and we're like, we want that guy, we want that guy. I remember beating the table a little bit. Obviously, Mims has panned out great for the Bengals. He has been everything that you had hoped for. So this is not a shot at him, but this is why I was throwing in the potential addition of a Jared Verse, where I said, hey, that's my favorite pass rusher in this draft class. I know you like Latu personally, and you like Verse as well. But I when I was looking at Verse, I said, I think Verse is a difference maker. And I said, the Bengals are fucked, but the Bengals are fucked if Trey Hendrickson goes down. Who are you relying on? And I asked that question. And I was told, well, we have an overabundance of defensive ends. Who is the odd man out? Well, you lose a Cam Sample, right? Who was always going to be a rotational player that you hoped would be able to spell some guys when, guys needed a breather, whatever the case may be. But your only hope for consistent pass rush that's playing at an elite level that showed up this game is a Trey Hendrickson. But what happens when Trey Hendrickson does not look like Trey Hendrickson? What happens when Trey Hendrickson has this type of a game? Who is going to be the next guy to step up? You see, I actually saw some positives from the rookie that they drafted in Cedric Johnson. So I was kind of shocked that he was inactive today. I'm like, listen, there are some guys out there that I still believe, again, to Zim's point, you have to leave no stone unturned. You have to at this point. You have to know what you have, because when you enter into this offseason, what areas of focus on the defense are you going to dissect? What areas on the defense or on the offense are you going to say, okay, this is definitely a sore spot for our team. This is definitely where we need to improve. You do not know that if you put these guys on inactive. At this point, play some of the younger guys. Let's see what they have. What do you have to lose, right? A guy like Jermaine Burton needs to be playing, because if T. Higgins is out of here next year, what do you have? Are you going to be like, hey, we need to allocate those X amount of dollars to a free agent wide receiver?
We don't even know. We don't even know.
Right. And it's like the slim spots we've seen from Jermaine Burton. And Daniel and I watch film after every single game. And when he's in there, they usually send him on go ball routes. Send him on go ball routes to clear it out. And they always put him on one-on-one coverage for the most part. I think today he got lined up in the slot. He got double teamed at one point. But Jermaine Burton has produced. You could see what this guy could potentially be. And whether, I don't care if it's like, hey, he doesn't know the playbook, or hey, we don't have the utmost confidence in him. He's talented. Get that guy on the football field with the T. Higgins, with the Jamar Chase. So that way, if a T. Higgins is out with a hamstring injury or Jamar Chase has to miss a game or two, it's not foreign to him. He's not being thrown into a spot. And that's where I think my Achilles heel is with this coaching staff, because it's like pulling teeth. It's like pulling teeth. Give that guy a chance. You know what? You know what he was doing at Alabama when everybody thought, oh, Jermaine Burton wouldn't be a difference maker. I remember there was one guy in the chat was arguing me back and forth. They were sending Jermaine Burton on go balls and slant routes for the most part at Alabama, right? And Jalen Milroe was underthrowing him on deep balls, and he was making the adjustment. Whether that be, okay, you know, some people thought, and that was all he could do in his route tree. No, his route tree is extremely well-rounded. But if he was able to produce like that at that level at the University of Alabama, what could he do with the Joe Burrow-led Bengals offense? Daniel, what say you?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think that everything that you guys said is accurate. And I think that's the part that irritates me with not only, you know, the coaching stuff, but just the organization in general. It's almost like they have this mindset, and this is a term that I personally hate when NBA teams do it, NFL teams do it. When they go out and let's say they make a big trade or they draft a player, they're going to do whatever it takes, even if it's 2 years or 3 years ago. They don't want to make themselves look stupid. And the point I'm going to make is a guy like Myles Murphy. I think Myles Murphy is fine. But at this point, what I believe, is he a star edge rusher? Is he somebody that's going to take the pressure off of Trey Hendrickson?
Well, let me sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
How the hell do we even know?
Yeah.
Sam Hubbard is getting more snaps over him. Sam Hubbard right now is getting blocked one-on-one by a tight end. He probably is still getting blocked right now as I'm speaking by that said tight end. He's getting more snaps over that guy, right? Mm-hmm. And then this is now the second year in a row we're blaming it on ailments and injuries and stuff like that. Okay, if the guy is not healthy, play somebody else who is healthy. Right. See what you have in your first round pick, because guess what? That option for Myles Murphy is going to come up very shortly, and you're going to be like, oh, what the hell are we dealing with? What do we got?
You know what bad teams do?
What's that?
Bad teams wait and are reactive. Mm-hmm. And so this is the whole thing that I've been saying all along. This is people that don't know my work or whatever. I've talked through this with all these different people. Because of the T. Higgins injury stuff and the uncertainty, the way that you got to play this is I've been a big proponent of a tag and trade. People say, well, I don't think the Bengals going to do it. They're just going to walk. Let bro go for 900,000 yards. There are going to be teams with a weak wide receiver class coming up, and you see the thirst for wide receivers. You're watching 30-year-old wide receivers get third and fourth round picks thrown their way. So I've always been saying, let's have a successful season with T. Higgins, maybe go on a playoff run and have a chance to win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. You come back and you tag and trade. He gets 900 plus yards, but the difference is you don't tag him immediately. You let David Mulligetta be the mouthpiece of everything. Go find this miracle deal that's on the NFC side, and then say, yeah, give me back a second round pick. Maybe it's a first. Who knows? But you get your pick right now this year, and you use the agent towards him, whatever. In the process of doing that, you also have to AJ Green, T. Higgins the situation. If people don't remember, you had to transition into T. Higgins, and by week 4 week 3 they actually started that process. I was told in week 1, after Jermaine Burton was the highest graded highest producing wide receiver in preseason. People were like, well, Zim, the staff doesn't really trust him. You don't really know. Listen, whoever's talking to me and still saying that, get the hell off your high horse. You sound stupid. You're acting as though Zach Taylor has won a Super Bowl. I'm the first person. I'm the biggest Bengal champion of whenever they do something well, but I'm also the first person to let people know that you haven't won a Super Bowl. So telling me to trust a staff that pretty much ruined Chris Evans' career, and we could go through the list of different players that they refused to play. Telling me that that I should trust that staff that hasn't won a Super Bowl. This is not Andy Reid we're talking about here. I need to see this dude play because I need to start the transition process. If you don't play him now, how will I know? Do you know what the Steelers did with Kenny Pickett? They waited, he got hurt and did all this other stuff, and then they had a small sample size. Then they wasted a whole season by allowing him to play in the 2022 season because they didn't understand what they had because the sample size was so small. So they wasted a whole year. You watch teams do this every single year, and then the teams that go out and play their players early, like the 2023 season, watching Laportas of the world come out there and play, watching guys like Kyle Hamilton, as soon as he gets into the NFL, go out and play. This is a third-round pick. You don't have the luxury of sitting anybody. I keep on saying that because the transition process, you need to have a clear, precise plan going into the offseason, because if Burton plays like 6 games later on this season, say T. Higgins comes back, and we don't have Burton out there on the field, how will we know what we're going to do in the draft? So anybody saying that, oh, yeah, just trust the coaching staff, I don't trust the coaching staff. I don't trust the front office to go get us any players. I don't trust anything. The only thing that I can rely on is the talented players playing. And if you're not playing those guys, at least I saw Yoshi drop a pass today. I saw him drop another one. At least I know. I say, oh, okay, I don't know about him as wide receiver 3. So when we get into the all-season part, then now we have a precise plan, and this is or concise plan that we know that we're going to move forward with. I don't understand how people are just like, just wait it out and let's see. Now T. Higgins is out this week, and then you walked into this game, and then you kind of had a plan that you saw how Gesicki was featured. That's how they would have used T. Higgins. But then I don't know, bro.
No, you're cooking right now. You're cooking. I'm enjoying this. You're cooking right now, and I'll go a step further. You go out there and you draft an extremely productive wide receiver in college football, obviously in Jermaine Burton, but also in Charlie Jones. You've now regulated that guy strictly to special teams duty, and you're playing Trent Irwin over him. Trent Irwin, who's been, inactive here and there. And I understand he has that rapport with Joe Burrow and he trusts him, if you will. But why not play that guy? The receiving room of the Bengals is supposed to be looked at as a strength. You add all these additions, make these additions, and you add tight ends such as Eric All or Mike Gesicki. Hell, a Tanner McLaughlin. Have we seen anything from that guy except for one game this year? Can that guy get on the field? But no, you're playing guys like Tanner Hudson. So this speaks to a larger issue of the mismanagement of personnel. And Zim, I think I guess we can kind of dive into this question here, man. It's shocking. We're almost been live for 30 minutes. Before we jump into that, actually, do us a favor, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live and when we upload content. Also, if you're not following Zim, follow Zim. He does a great job, him and Ace over at Cincinnati Podcast. Make sure you guys are following them. They are extremely energetic and great at what they do. They're sort of the pioneers of this whole thing. So make sure you guys are following them, following their work. This is something that me and Zim wanted to bring to you guys because it's a different flavor. It's like, well, again, we're going to be talking to you guys about, our opinion of the game, breaking it down. Obviously, we'll have more to say in the week on our respective shows, but I just think that this is kind of a good debrief to kind of just talk things.
It's like
through.
We get together and we meet up and just kind of, go. We've probably been cooking with some of this stuff. That's why I was like, let me just introduce y'all to some of the things that the Bengals, you know what I mean? So I read real quick. I read one comment. Somebody said, so just pack up the season. No, the Bengals went with this plan in the draft where they kept 11 picks. So when you do that, you're already saying we're not going to re-sign any of the guys free agents wise. We're not going to sign big time free agents. We're not going to sign anybody, whatever. So you took your draft plan and now you move forward with it. So Malik is pointing out Tanner McLaughlin and stuff. It's not that you're in a rebuild or anything like that. It's what you chose to do. Right. So if you don't move forward with the plan that you started, how can people like me even back up what they're doing? How can I back
100%.
you up if you're not going to go and execute the plan that you started and implemented?
Hear me out. Those guys are getting roster, are taking up roster spots. They made the 53-man roster, right? You got a guy and a linebacker who was everybody's preseason darling in Zhang Meta, I think his last name, how you say it. He is regulated to special teams, or he doesn't play at all for the most part. How do you know what a Tanner McLaughlin, who you drafted, has, right? How do you know what that guy could bring to the table? I would say the same thing if McKinley Jackson was active but didn't get play time. What did that guy make the 53-man roster for? You obviously saw something in that guy and said, hey, you know what? That guy could help our team in this way or that way. Let's keep him, let's keep him on the team. Let's see what this person could bring to the table. Maybe it's something different. I want to see what Cedric Johnson has, because I saw the early returns in preseason and early when he was active for games. I said, "Oh, that guy's showing something. He's showing some absolute potential." And I'm not just saying, "Hey, just throw rookies out there because we're tossing the season." To Zim's point, like we're not. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is maybe that could be a jolt of energy, because guess what? In the pass rush department, you definitely need it at this point. But I feel like we've been singing the same song and dance for the last few off seasons regarding the pass rush. Daniel, I cut you off.
No, you're good. And we had a comment. Somebody was saying like the coaches know who can play in their system. That's the whole thing. And that's what we're discussing. Their system has gotten them to 3-5 right now. And to point out a couple things, I think you go look at the running game. Joe Burrow said in his press conference, it's first couple games, some good stuff. The past couple games, it wasn't. Let's look at Joe Mixon, right? His final 3 years with the Bengals, 3.8 yards per carry, 4 yards a carry. With the Texans, he's 5.3 yards a carry. Mm-hmm. And that's indicative of saying, hey, a guy like Joe Mixon wasn't washed. Mm-hmm. And maybe the Bengals are saying, hey, we're just going to go away from that style of offense. But that shows me right there, that specific, and even looking at some of the, how Chase Brown and Zach Moss have played, the Bengals system doesn't focus on the running game. So it's something like that. And I think that's what we're discussing really is. It's about the system that the Bengals have right now. And that's just what concerns me. So,
and let's talk about it, because there were a lot of people that were singing that song in praise about the demise of a Joe Mixon. And we see the production he's having over in Houston. And I'm not trying to peel off a Band-Aid and rip and talk and pour salt in the wound here. But what I'm going to say is,
pour it on.
There is a lack of commitment to the run game here in Cincinnati. And, I think it's time for us to have that conversation that this is just not an offensive staff that's going to predicate their success of their offense on the run game. And I think it's because you ever played Madden before, right? You have Joe Burrow when you are playing with the Bengals, and you have a T. Higgins, you have a Jamar Chase, and you're like, man, I'm going to throw the ball 40 times a game. Or you don't even plan to do it. You just go in there and you're like, oh, snap. By the fourth quarter, my running back only got 10 yards, 15 yards rushing. You know what I mean? And I almost feel like it's the similar thing with Zach and staff sometimes. It's like, we have Jamar Chase, we have Joe Burrow, we have a Mike Gesicki, we have this, we have that, but you're not putting up the points of what this offense is expected to do. We saw it a couple of times throughout the weeks, but I certainly have my thoughts, which brings me to this next question. I think this is a overall sentiment of probably all of Bengals Nation, all of Whodey Nation right now, is where do the Bengals go from here? I will have Daniel kind of touch on it first, then I'll have Zim go on it, and then I'll give my take.
Yeah, where do the Bengals go from here? I think you guys did a good job of summarizing. It's not about firing Zach Taylor right now. So, because if you ask yourself the question, that's all Bengals fans, what do you do if you do fire Zach Taylor, right? Who's the guy that you put in place? Does that change everything right now? In my opinion, at this point, at 3-5, it doesn't. So where do you go from here? You really have to take it one game at a time. And Joe Burrow said it best. You got to win 10 games. And just looking at the pure standings right now, the teams above them are the Colts, who are fine. Like, it's not like it's out of the realm of possibility, but you have to go on a magical run. And I really do think it starts with figuring out you have to put points on the board. So you got a nice game with the Raiders here, and then you got to make something magical happen. And we discussed this, Malik. Hey, in the division, in my opinion, you have to go almost undefeated against the Steelers. You have to sweep the Steelers, and you have to make something happen against the Ravens. So, because if you go into this bye week and in 3 games, you got the Chargers, Ravens, and the Raiders. You have to win at least 2 to 3 of those games. And then coming out of the bye week, it doesn't look crazy. So, I'd just be concerned, and this is my real concern. And this is something that Zach Taylor said in his press conference after that fourth down. You know, he was sick to his stomach, and we saw what that team, they got punched in the mouth in the fourth quarter. And that's my concern. At this point, you really have to question, say, hey, does this team really lose their locker room? And that's the point that you're at. You have to gain confidence back in your team. And this upcoming week, I'm discussing, hey, it's not just a win against the Giants. It's not just a win against the Browns. You got to come out here and make a statement, in my opinion, against the Raiders. And I think if you make a statement, this season, it ain't over yet. So,
you know, I one thing I'll say before Zim jumps in here, I don't know if how many people got to catch Joe Burrow's press conference. That had to be some of the most depressing shit I've ever seen, respectfully. I've never seen him like that before. Seems totally dejected, talking about, yeah, you know, you get the 10 wins and that should get you in. But it just felt, it didn't feel moving at all. It felt
it's because he's now, it's a lot like what's going on in today's society. Once you have a take or whatever, there's this reluctancy of people to get off of that take no matter what. I was arguing with like people about Jamar Chase earlier this week. These are people that I pulled receipts on that said Jamar Chase is barely a top 10 wide receiver, because they're so caught on trying to be right with a take. They can't get out of their head that they were wrong, and it's okay to be wrong, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Joe Burrow is wrong or anything, but all this time, think about it. I pay attention to everything Joe Burrow says. When we won and we got to the playoffs and we won the division twice, he came to the podium and said, yeah, this is the standard. So he can't now come back now and be like, you know what? I was wrong. The standard's lower now.
Right.
Like he still has to stay consistent with his message.
Right.
The problem is, I think they lack so much leadership. And to people's point of Zach Taylor, I think it starts right there. Like you know, like this PR campaign that he's on, he moves like a politician. Like everything is like customer service driven. Like, we got ourselves in a hole. Like, there's never like this fire. And if they have fire behind the scenes, maybe we just don't see it, you know, whatever. But
yeah,
he doesn't challenge them enough. And I think that that's a big part of like what's going on. The personnel I talked about, like defensively or whatever, I don't think they have that. I really don't. I think once Dax Hill went down, I don't think that they have the covers to stop any team with any. Like, I think we're about to see wide receivers that are less than go and cook us up. Like that, I really believe that.
Yeah.
And then the offense isn't good enough to match that every single week. Even if T. Higgins is there, I just don't see them as a 30-point squad every single week because they make too many mistakes. And even on the first drive, as good as it was, I thought that was maybe the best drive of the season. After that, he's forced to make so many tight window throws. He's forced to do so many crazy things that I don't think people understand. When you go watch these other teams play, like particularly like the Ravens, bro is throwing screen, run, successful run. Then he could throw a deep run. Bro is forced to throw so much tight window stuff, even when the offense is scoring. And I don't think you got to go watch other games and just he's asked to do way too much. Like way too much, bro.
And it just seems so difficult and so challenging. You know, something I want to touch on really quickly before we get out of here, because we've been live for almost 40 minutes. I mean, you know, we were literally talking like, how long are we going to do this for? But, you know, when Zach Taylor first got to Cincinnati, he was all about shifting the culture, changing the culture. And he said, we want to bring in winners, people from winning programs, captains. Wouldn't it be crazy if that was the same thing that kind of hurt him in the future? Because what happens when you bring in guys from winning programs, like a Jamar Chase, like a Joe Burrow, people that played at some of these big universities, the standard does get raised because they're used to winning. They're not used to losing. And you draft a quarterback like Joe Burrow and you think, oh, the window is open for forever. You know, like he said, the Super Bowl window is my career. And I think that's such a cold statement to make. But I think, you know, we always talk about like how great quarterbacks can always overcome bad coaching. But I do think it gets to a point sometimes where the dysfunction of and mismanagement of personnel usage can get in the way of something great. And I look at it and I say, these guys, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, they're not going to sit back and settle for a win. Jamar Chase, let me just say it right now. Jamar Chase is not interested in being a CEO and giving politically correct answers, if you will, for the betterment. You know, he like if he has games where the Bengals aren't taking deep shots or they're not being aggressive, what does he say? I don't know. Ask Zach. Putting the pressure on him.
Yeah.
Right. And what happens is when you get guys that want to win so badly, the criticism gets loud. Right. The criticism gets loud. People then start pointing to the coach. And then you have to start asking the question, is Zach Taylor really the man to lead the Bengals? Listen, I think he's a great guy. I sat back talking 15 minutes at the combine. Awesome dude. I'm not sure if he's the guy to get the Bengals over the hump. I'm not sure if he's the guy.
I was going to ask Daniel this. He said that it's doable and everything. I wanted to ask him, does he think that it is possible?
Do I think it's possible? Of course, I think it's possible.
I mean, not that it's possible. Do you think the Bengals can do it right now?
Maybe I'm being too positive. I think that they can, but the issue, it's going to really come down to that Ravens game. And I think that that's the game that we discussed to where that's a statement game. And obviously I discussed the Raiders game being the statement game, but if you can go into Baltimore, because that's a game where respectfully at this point, this team should not and does not look like they can go into opposing territory on prime time and beat that Ravens team. I think it's going to take something different. But I do think that the overall sentiment that what concerns me is, like you discussed and like Malik, you guys were discussing, there's too much pressure on Joe Burrow. And I go back to, it was, I think the Giants game. We were watching that in the TWSN suite, man. And that third down late in the game, you know, heading to the 2-minute warning, you run the ball twice and it's 3rd and 13. At that point, I think that's a perfect summary. I can't even speak right now. A perfect, encapsulation of this Bengals team saying, hey, you run the ball twice, you put yourself behind the sticks. And if Joe Burrow doesn't make crazy play, roll out to his left, hit Yoshi on a broken play, you could lose that game. And I think that's exactly where the Bengals are right now. So do I think it happens? I think it's definitely not likely, but that's what I'd be pinpointing. Hey, Thursday Night Football, if you can go out, beat the Ravens, you're still looking fine to make the playoffs.
But we have to ask this question, though. At what point do we really think that Zach can corral the troops to make this happen? Because I'm being honest with you, this is going to be predicated on Joe Burrow. If Joe Burrow and company can uplift this team and go forward. I don't think, listen, you got smacked in the mouth by the Commanders. You got punched in the mouth by a new coach in Gerard Mayo, and you lose. Listen, I'm all about finding a way to win, right? The margin for error in the NFL is so small. But, you can have bad games, right? We've seen the Chiefs have bad games. The thing is, the teams that have bad games, teams that have championship aspirations, they find a way to win.
Exactly.
You don't let a first-time head coach in Gerard Mayo come into your house when you are the team with all the championship aspirations locked and loaded, the one season where Joe Burrow has a full, healthy offseason, and you get out-coached and punched in the mouth by a rookie coach and a journeyman in Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, who you also allowed to run on you. To me, there are some fundamental issues with this team, and it's like, you think they're going to go into Baltimore on Thursday Night Football and beat that team? I'd love to say that they would. I would love to be the guy because guess what? If they ever rattle off a couple wins, I'll be there. I'll be trying to link up with Zim, and we'll try to see if we can meet up and go to that game. But listen, I'm also not dumb to the fact, and I'm not saying you are either, but I'm just saying I'm not dumb to the fact that there's an issue. There's an issue here, and I think that you are holding on by a thread to the belief, of these players, believing in Zach Taylor, believing if Zach Taylor could be the guy to help push this team forward. You're 0-4 at home in the jungle. You were controlling the game against the Eagles, and you just find a way to screw it. It just feels different now. It is kind of hard to explain. It just feels different.
Yeah, and I think one last thing, you go look at other teams, and perfect example is the Detroit Lions. Look at what they did last year, right? In the playoffs, everybody said Dan Campbell blew the game. Dan Campbell, after the game, said, hey, I lost this team, but you saw how much it hurt. the fundamentals that they had with their team, hey, they stick to them. Going for it on fourth down, going for it on third down, they stick to it. And the fundamental base that they have is something that the Cincinnati Bengals, I believe, don't have. It's the third and shorts that they can't convert, the fourth and shorts. And that's something you go look at what the quarterback says. And that's why I personally think that hearing the press conference from Joe Burrow is extremely valuable. He said, you know, when asked about third downs, that's been a problem for us. And that's the problem. If your franchise quarterback is saying that, what's your solution? I'm with you. I think that it's definitely concerning. And even with us projecting into the future, are we confident that they can go, you know, beat the Browns again? Are we confident they can sweep the Steelers? And at this point,
with Jameis Winston playing like that, I don't know, bro.
Yeah. And at this point, I think that the confidence in this team, fans should not feel confident in this team. And I think that's what it's going to take, a miracle. It's going to take something special. But yeah, I can't be confident.
You know what's so nasty about this? Had they won that game today, I would be on 1,000. I would have came on here. We would have had the most lit show today, like ever, because it would have gave me enough confidence to say, okay, they got what it takes. But I think all the weaknesses, whether that's the head coach, whether that's the secondary, whether that's the pass rush, maybe the lack of talent behind the number one wide receiver, everything was all on display. The Bengals started off with full control. The Eagles didn't even score in the first quarter. They're the only team in the NFL that hasn't scored in the first quarter of football. And the Bengals just managed to figure out a way to lose, just like they have done, whether it's 4th and 16, whether it's a missed field goal. Bad teams always figure out a way to lose games. And the Bengals are the epitome of that. That is the definition of a bad team. And that's why I asked Daniel that question, because it's like, I know that it's possible.
Yeah.
I just don't think that they have what it takes to do it. And I know a lot of people classify me as like a homer or something like that. I'm smart enough to understand, like, this is at this point, I really feel like the Bengals are who their record says that they are. And that doesn't mean that they aren't talented. I think that they're super talented at a lot of different spots. I think personnel-wise and different things that they do throughout the game, whatever, I don't agree with. I'm not a head coach. I think their screen games are horrible. I think their first down efficiency and their short run game is probably the worst in the NFL. And those different things are the ingredients of losing every single week in this league, where the margin for error, like you said, is very, very small.
Very small. And somebody bringing up Fred Johnson, I want to say this, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I always praised that dude. I always thought he projected a lot better at tackle. And for whatever reason in Cincinnati, we consistently put him at guard when he was in spots, when he was in games playing tackle. He produced for the Bengals. He's a big behemoth of the guy. There's a reason why the Steelers were so pissed when we poached him off their practice. You know, they were hoping that they can get that guy back I think they cut him and then we claimed him. And for whatever reason, we could never find a spot for the dude. So honestly, I'm shocked that he had as much success as he did against Trey Hendrickson, but I'm not shocked that he had success, if that makes sense.
Don't you think that's coaching too, though?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of guys like that, you know, like, I don't know if y'all seen Andrew Billings in the NFL. Like, so a lot of people are so critical on Tobin. And I'll be like, bro, there's a lot of players that have done very well, including a guy like a Jesse Bates that most people didn't really know. A second round, pick that has now become the number one safety in the NFL.
Yep.
To see Fred Johnson come out there, I don't know if Fred Johnson would have ever did that in a Bengals uniform.
Right.
There are a lot of players that I look at when they're drafted, including, remember you kind of put me on the Jermaine Burton in that show that we were doing. It's like I seen him before, but I was like, there's no way that they would draft a character guy like that. And in my mind, one of my fears is coming to life is that there are certain players that get on the Bengals roster, and I don't think that the Bengals do enough to maximize what they do well.
Thank you.
And you saw today that Eric All went, I don't need all 22 to see this. Go look at, y'all mean to tell me starting week one with no T. Higgins, that a guy stretching and taking the top off the field couldn't have helped us in a game that tight where we only lose by like 5 points or something like that? And then the only answer is, oh, well, you got to trust the coaching staff. Like, why would I trust the coaching staff? And I'm watching all of these players not be on the Bengals, and they now turn up. Joe Mixon is now top 2 running back in the National Football League at 27. And think about this. I don't even know if their offensive line is that crazy. Their offensive line isn't really that great. But the run game coordination, the offensive line coach that we don't have is making a Fred Johnson look bad. Like, come on, bro. Like, I was wrong. I thought that Trey Hendrickson would kill Fred Johnson today. But for me to watch Fred Johnson today, I'm like, man, look at his arm length. Look at it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like looking at all these different things. I'm like, damn, these are all the traits that made him an amazing depth piece for the Bengals. And the Bengals never got shit out of it. And then we walk away from it every time somebody has a bad play. And then we always say, oh, that guy sucks.
Right.
These guys like Yoshi probably go to a whole nother team and probably actually do pretty well. And for whatever reason, they aren't figuring out ways to maximize the talent that is there on the current roster. The Bengals are a very young team too. So you got to play them.
You have to. And here's one thing I'll say. If you look at a guy like ADG and Akeem Davis-Gaither, he was a Swiss Army knife. He was a Swiss Army knife in college. That's what he was used as. He was used as a pass coverage. He was also used as another rusher. He went to Appalachian State. He went to App State, and they were super excited about him. They said, what would he be in the NFL? Was he going to be a rusher? Is he going to be a guy that drives back in coverage? He almost reminds me a little bit of Hassan Reddick and how he was used a little bit at Temple when he played with my brother. But he found a spot for himself in the league, right? He's primarily used as a down rusher. And it's like, it took us this long to start to utilize Akeem Davis-Gaither. And that's a guy that I think should be on the football field a whole lot more than what he is, because I think he has a lot to offer. Look, man, there's certainly been so much to get into. This is going to be a long week. Make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. But also make sure you guys are following Zim Whodey, following his podcast, Cincinnati. They do some amazing work. I'm sure him and Ace are going to be going live this week, diving into everything. I know we're going to be going live, diving into things on State of the Jungle as well. So make sure you guys follow them. Remember, me and Zim will be live every single, after every game for the remainder of the season for the Bengals. And if there's playoff action, we'll try to go live for that as well. But Zim, not the way that we wish to kick off this, not the way it wished that we not the way we wanted to kick off this this live recap show, but it is.
Yeah, man.
We discussed the good, bad.
In my mind, once we scored, I was like, man, I'm about to come on Malik's show and go crazy on it. I was about to go to, because them Eagles fans be talking to me crazy. If y'all don't know on my Twitter, like y'all ever want to see like what the opposition thinks of you, just look at my comment section. So they're just like, Jamar Chase ain't nothing. I'm like, I'm about to go crazy. I'm so upset that we can't rage. I'm telling you, had we won that game, they had a game plan that I like. And, it sucks. You got blown out at home. You're 0-4 at home. The Bengals are 3-5, and I feel like they look like they're 3-5.
Yeah. I think you are what your record says you are right now. And I think you have to find 1,000%. A way to continue to get better and to, keep pushing it forward. It's going to be interesting to see how they come out and look against the Raiders. The Raiders are not a team that they should sleep against. I know Zim and I won't be previewing the game, but we will be going live after the game. And here's what I'll just say. That is a team that you can't think that you're going to sleepwalk and just go out there and beat, because if you let them hang around, they will punch you in the mouth and they can beat you. Max Crosby, he's one of the best edge rushers in the league, and don't let that guy wreck your game plan. Don't let guys like Christian Wilkins wreck your game plan. It's going to be a tough matchup. Like I said, the Bengals do not have any more easy matchups moving. He is out for the season. Yeah. But the Bengals don't have any more easy layups. The Bengals don't have any more gimmies the rest of the season. Not saying that there's any game in the league that there are gimmies, but the Bengals got to find a way to win, no matter how it looks. They have to figure out a way. Zim, man, this has been a pleasure, brother. Make sure you guys.
You got me. I got my wheels turning, because now I'm thinking, like, I'm reading the comments. I'm like, man, what if you lose to the Raiders? What are we saying then? Are we saying is that a Zach Taylor moment then? If you lose to the Raiders and you're 3-6
at home. Oof.
Is that Zach Taylor? I see, for this front office, what I would do versus what the front office do is two totally different things. Because at that point, I would say, Dan Pitcher, whatever, I don't know, interim or whatever, but I just don't know. The scary thing about not having Zach Taylor, I'm sorry, like I'm going over it.
No, you're good. You're good.
The scary thing about moving on from Zach Taylor is I know that this front office and the people that are screaming fire Zach the most, my biggest fear is that they'll hire another Zach Taylor. And what I mean by that is a Bill Belichick guy. Remember when they got Zach, the guys that were all there that they could have got, they all wanted some bit of control and they wanted money. And those two things, this front office is not going to hire. So when you say fire Zach, who are you going to bring in that would be willing to come on to be a yes man? There is nobody that I feel like it's such an easy job inheriting Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? But those people are not going to go down losing with people that they don't know. And that's the biggest thing. Like, people got to think realistically. Like, if you were to take this job, are you going to go down on the Titanic with a front office of people that don't know how to communicate, don't have a network, don't have any bit of communication skills or money that they're willing to throw at anything, and you willing to go down on a ship with that? I wouldn't. As great as Joe Burrow is, I just don't see that guy out there. Do you?
So here's what I'll say. I think the potential person that was going to come in and take over the Bengals once they fired Marvin Lewis was always going to be a coach that I personally felt was going to be someone that you helped, bring talent and start to reshape and turn the page from Marvin Lewis. I think that you didn't have a bunch of coaches to really pick from that wanted to come in here and coach that. You saw an aging team with Andy Dalton as a starting quarterback. Now you look at it, I feel like Cincinnati would be a very hotbed destination. I think there will be a lot of coaches out there that be like, wow, I get to coach Joe Burrow. I get to coach Jamar Chase. Definitely I would franchise tag T. Higgins, and I would do the potentially sign and trade, if you will, or tag and trade. I'm sorry. I think that Cincinnati is going to be a spot where you're going to be like, damn, I want to be there. It's just a matter of who would that person be? Who makes a lot of sense? Now, there's a couple of guys that I can see the Bengals saying, you know what? Well, we'll get Joe Burrow's input on and see what he thinks. Joe Brady, I mean, offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Does he make sense? We got the hire. Oh, the Ohio 513 says hire Willie Anderson as head coach. I
gotta show Willie that. That's why I took a picture. I was like, let me show
Willie. There is going to be a lot of different coaches the Bengals could potentially choose from. You got Bobby Slowick over in Houston.
Yep.
But ideally, whoever you hire, you want to make sure, because you're losing something with Zach Taylor. And what I think you're losing is I think you're losing a culture guy, a guy that definitely is a player's coach. I think I see a lot of people bringing up Mike Vrabel. I don't feel like Mike Vrabel is necessarily a player's coach. And maybe you don't need that. Maybe you need a guy that is just going to push this team to the limit. I look at what Ed Ogeron was over in LSU. He was a guy that wasn't a good X's and O's guy, but he was a guy that just motivated these guys and pushed these guys to be the best they could potentially be. Maybe that's what this team needs. Maybe this team needs a coach that is good with the X's and O's, that isn't necessarily a player's coach, but pushes you. Just know it. For people that are saying Bill Belichick, I'm just going to tell you now, okay, you're getting Bill Belichick. If that was going to be the case, you're getting Bill Belichick. Right. You're getting Josh McDaniels as offensive coordinator. You're getting Matt Patricia as the defensive coordinator, who's very similar to Lou in that sense, where it's a turnover-prone built defense. That coaching staff is already set in place. That coaching staff is already set in place for whoever Bill takes over to be that. So whoever you bring in, you have to ask, what are we sacrificing? What are we losing versus what are we gaining? For me, I think that from a coaching standpoint, we consistently get out coached. The situational coaching is bad. And you know what's sad is sometimes Zach Taylor puts together good performances sometimes, and it's like
that's what hurts me.
And you hate. Listen, what is this, year 6? Year 6, you should not be having the same issues you had early on. That's what I think.
Yeah. I feel like he makes the same mistakes twice, and I'm one of them people that I don't. When I get enough information on something, you said you met him before. I never met him before, right?
Yeah.
Anybody that's ever been in a room with me or whatever, I have a very, very assertive personality. And I defer to people that are smarter than me for things that I don't know. And that, like it could be a Ben Johnson or it could be Bobby Slavic that I'd be like, yeah, you know what? I think he knows what he's talking about. I think Zach does a real good job communicating to people. Sometimes some players don't feel that same way. Some players aren't on our team anymore. I will say that, but at no point, when I'm in a room with people, I end up being like this alpha that I'm not even intending to do so, just because I have a stronger personality. At no point, me, from my background and where I'm from or whatever, Zach couldn't motivate me to bust a grape on a countertop. Like I'm just telling y'all straight up. Now, depending on where you're from, your culture, or your background, you might defer to a guy like Zach. He looks more to me like, like, I don't know, like, like he has the personality traits of someone at a job that I probably left like 10 years ago that got on my nerves, that I just, you know what I mean? Like he couldn't motivate me to do anything. I think that's why when people see Mike Tomlin at a press conference, or they see you talk, or they see me talk, there's a reason why people listen to me and you, and a lot of people hate it, right? Some people hate us, because of just the way because we're assertive. Sometimes people come from a place where they're taught to be a little bit more humble, a little bit put your head down. You might defer to a Zach Taylor. I could tell you that probably 80% of that locker room wouldn't buy shit that Zach Taylor's selling. That's just me. Me knowing how people are in a room, and personalities work, and all these different things. To say that he doesn't know football, I mean, he knows a lot about football, I'm sure. But when it comes to motivating people and getting people to do things that above and beyond,
you're cooking right now.
He's not that guy. And I'm just letting y'all know that, like, that might be harsh for a lot of people that still believe in him or just don't understand. I'm from a place where entrepreneurship is championed and getting out on your own and going hard or whatever. Like, this is where I'm from. So you better be talking some real talk if you want to convince me of anything.
So I'm gonna be honest with you.
He's not that guy.
I think whoever you bring in to be the head coach of the Bengals, I don't think I don't think they should be a first-time head coach. I think they should be a coach that has a winning pedigree, that has done it before. And it's a automatic A+ if you have a championship pedigree, because I think right now that's what that staff, I think that's what this roster needs. They need someone who they know can do it. They've seen them do it. And I feel like that's the type of leader that this locker room would get behind. We talk about a championship culture and instilling a championship culture. I think it would make sense for a lot of reasons. So when I look at it, people talk about a Bill Belichick often. Does that guy want to coach again? I could see him wanting to coach again. He would make a lot of sense. Hell, you look at Brian Flores. I love Brian Flores. I think that he is a fiery guy. He's a hard-nosed guy. He comes from a winning culture in New England. He has had a lot of success. So whoever you bring in to be if you were to move on from Zach Taylor, they would have to be someone that is a leader, right? But a different type of leader, a vocal leader, but also they bring in that championship pedigree. I think if you got a coach with a championship pedigree in this building, I think things will look a little different. That's my opinion.
Hey, Daniel, how did we do for our first show? Did we kill it or what?
No, this fire. I'm not gonna lie.
Tell me this ain't fire. This is a good show. I like this. I'm weird. I like to put myself. If I was listening to this, I'd be like, man, I like what these guys are saying. What's that? Some good stuff.
And what I will say, what you guys are doing a very good job of, is these are conversations that are actually productive to how they should and will move forward. And I think that's the part that a lot of people get mixed up, is like, and I think it's very good of looking at, hey, what should they do and what will they do? Because once you can identify those two things, it's like, okay, if they don't do these things, this should show the audience and this should show the fan base, hey, this is the exact reason why it's not working. And so,
I'm gonna go a step further real quick. It's the last thing I'll say before we head out of here. Damn it, we had an hour, bro.
When you cooking, it's hard to stop, right? When you get in the kitchen and you cut the stove on, it's just hard to cut it off sometimes.
Guys, don't rip me in the comment section what I'm about to say. If I was Bengals ownership group, hear me out. If I was the Bengals ownership group, again, I'm gonna say it again. If I was the Bengals ownership group, not what they're going to do. If I was the Bengals ownership group, I would be paying very close attention to the situation in San Francisco. That is what I will say. If I was the Bengals ownership group, I would pay very close attention to the situation in San Francisco, because I look at it and I say, damn, DeMarcus, you're cooking in the comment section. That's a guy.
Okay.
If I could pull him out of retirement, hell yeah, the fedora, the whole 9 yards, let's do it.
If I was Bengals, I would bring Bill Parcells in to oversee the whole thing, and then Daniel just made a great point. And I'm sorry to cut you off, Malik.
No, you're good. You're good.
This is what I was gonna say. The one thing that does piss me off is because I love the Bengals so much. I don't think I'm gonna just be talking Bengals for the rest of my life. I love other sports, but I love the Bengals so much that it pisses me off when I see people just crying like little kids. Like even my son, he's a diehard Bengals fan. He's 8 years old. He progressively tries to figure out answers. If you're just complaining, and I think we set the tone for the show. If you're just going to complain, this isn't a show for you. Right. We're here for ideas. We're looking to progress, and we're looking to do something that's going to make our team better. Even though we have connections, we have different things, we have input, we have players that follow us, all types of stuff. So hopefully people will see these things. But one thing I'm not about is crying like a little ass kid because I didn't get the things that I wanted or whatever. Let's have real conversations on who is the person. I love the people talking about Ben Johnson. I love the people talking about different things like that. These are all different things that we could do. I'm not projecting that the sky is falling and the sky hasn't fallen. We're trying to be assertive in our thought process on what is it going to take for the Bengals to go get it, because I'm not really I'm not trying to do this with you or anybody just to hear a bunch of grown people crying about what didn't go their way. Let's get to it. Let's get to some dubs and let me have bragging rights and go on a float. You know what I mean?
100%. And we're always going to try to push the conversation forward. And we'll, again, on different channels, you get different things. On different shows, you get different things. One thing I've always appreciated and admired about Zim is we always have a similar mindset in terms of wanting to see the team do better. And I always feel like we have almost unconventional things, or people that say, well, that's not possible. Well, why not? Well, why not? You know, I will tell you this. And last thing I'll say, when the Bengals are doing their coaching search, I remember I was talking to Zim, and we were talking about Eric Bieniemy. We're talking about Eric Bieniemy, and we were discussing, I was like pretty much telling him what made me think that he could make a good coach for Cincinnati. And it was his ability to make players believe in him, fire players up. I don't know what took place in Kansas City from that time till now. I know I had a conversation with him outside of a bar, and I just told him to keep his head up. And now he's out of the league right now. Right. But I look for coaches that I think could make sense, because you definitely need a coach in here that has a championship pedigree. That guy has how many Super Bowl rings, whatever it is. He was an offensive play caller, has multiple Super Bowl rings. I want somebody in here who can vocalize it to players, but can also put it together X's and O's wise, but also get the players to believe in their message and bring in that championship pedigree. But listen, this was the first show. We'll be back next week after the Bengals take on the Raiders. Come hell or high water, we'll be discussing it. We'll be talking it through. We're having a discussion, man. Make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the TWSN studios. Follow Zim, follow the Cincinnati podcast. Zim, when you going live this week, brother?
I am forced to go live. I'm so I swear. I'm going live on Monday at 8 p.m. So if you just, instead of putting a C like Cincinnati, just spell it Cincinnati, it'll pop right up.
Awesome, my man. Listen, we appreciate y'all. Keep y'all heads up. It'll get better, hopefully, here shortly. They got to figure something out. We'll be back live next week, me and Zim. First ever crossover episode. Appreciate your opportunity. And as always, Whodey.
Whodey.